Hello everybody and welcome to my plans for patch 0.4, The Last of the Druids, coming to Path of Exile 2 next Friday. Before I get into the details, I believe this patch looks like about a 7 out of 10, very similar to 0.3 Rise of the Abyssal. The reason being is that the in-game changes that were proposed, unfortunately for this patch, are now pushed to the next one, which means that we still do not quite have enough content, and especially the difficulty of content, to truly test our characters. In my mind, that's like the whole point of playing an action RPG. Your loot grind, your currency grind, your levels, none of that really matters unless you actually have content to test it against. And right now, Path of Exile 2 is definitely lacking in that regard. But we do have a lot of new stuff to try out in this patch, so I think it'll be pretty interesting, and again, like a 7 out of 10. All right, that being said, of course, I'm going to be playing the Druid. That's right. I haven't 100% locked in which shapeshift form I'm going to play, but it's almost certainly going to be the wolf. The bear looks pretty fun. I'm a big melee enthusiast myself. Unfortunately, the bear just looks pretty slow in my opinion, and the AoE doesn't look too great. Honestly, if you're going to play bear, just go play Titan instead. It's almost certainly going to be better on the Titan than the Druid. And then for the Wyvern form, you can see right there with that ability, it just looks very slow as well. Yeah, it's going to be pretty cool flying around as a dragon doing some crazy stuff, but I have landed on the wolf ultimately because of the speed. Number one, he has a bunch of attack speed. Every single skill that was showcased with the wolf has a baseline attack speed above 100%, so that's just going to feel really good. Now, obviously, higher attack speed means that numerically your character is much more powerful, duh. But number two, and more importantly, it gives you massive quality of life because all of your animations for your abilities happen faster. That is the main reason why I want to play the wolf. You also get increased movement speed just by default. When you hop on all fours, you start running around the map, you just get increased movement speed while you do that. It's pretty sick. And the final reason why I really want to try out the wolf form is because of this skill right here, Lunar Blessing. This is a buff skill at level 13 out of 20. It gives you 52% of your damage as extra cold damage. 52%, that's insane, for 5 seconds by default. But it also has another component where every other attack in your werewolf form also calls down a moonbeam. Now, unfortunately, these beams have a cooldown period. You can see here, the base cooldown is 1 second, but every single beam does 149% damage. And you're going to be able to toss support gems into this skill to boost that damage even further. And again, this is not a level 20 version of the skill, it's only level 13. So at level 20, maybe this grants you 75% damage as extra cold, and maybe your moonbeams are dealing like 250 or 300% damage. Now, we don't have a lot of sources of cooldown recovery in the game right now, but there definitely are a few, and by stacking cooldown reduction, you, number one, make this skill up more frequently, but number two, also makes your moonbeam cooldown lower, allowing you to proc it more frequently. So wolf is the tentative plan, almost certainly going to commit to it, but we'll have to see once the patch actually goes live. So for the Ascendancy classes, this is the Shaman. This guy seems like the stereotypical way to play a Druid, hybrid like human spellcaster and then shapeshifting into your animal attack-based savage form. This seems like the way to play that guy most optimally. And the two most interesting notes here are Furious Wellspring and Avatar of Evolution. Furious Wellspring is a 4-pointer. The one going into it, Druidic Champion, just makes half of your rage also apply to your spell damage. And interesting enough, the small nodes going into each of the big ones gives you +4 max rage. So you get +8 and then +7 from Furious Wellspring, which means your baseline max rage without any other investment on the regular passive tree is 45 instead of 30. So 45 max rage, half of that is more spell damage applied to your character. And then on top of that, you gain no inherent loss of rage. By default, after you don't attack something or generate rage for some time, it starts rapidly depleting. That no longer happens. Number two, you regenerate 6% of your max rage per second. This by default is going to give you 2 rage per second. Number three, it also makes it so you can stack mana regeneration rate, which will increase your rage regeneration rate, which is a very easy stat to get on your character. But number four, and unfortunately, it makes it so every skill that is not your default attack costs 5 flat rage to use it. So long story short, you have a lot of max rage. It never degens, it only regens, but you're using it when you use your abilities. And again, it's applying to both your attacks and your spells. Pretty interesting synergy options here, especially with skills that hit multiple times in one cast, or you can have one cast and then repeat it. If you did not know, repeats of abilities do not cost anything. And then for Avatar of Evolution, this is also a 4-pointer. The first one, Reactive Growth. Whenever you take elemental damage, you also gain 1 stack of adaptation of that same element. So you have fire, cold, and lightning adaptations. And then for every stack of adaptation, you take 4% less damage, again, of that exact damage type. Then Avatar of Evolution, the first 3 lines, just think of this as you take 15% less physical damage. It's not exactly how it works because you're still taking that phys as those elements, but it's way easier to mitigate that elemental damage than it is physical. So for all intents and purposes, 15% less physical damage taken. Then your adaptation stacks have a duration of 10 seconds. We don't know if that's an increase or a decrease. It could technically be a decrease. Maybe the baseline duration is 20 seconds, but I would have to guess it's probably an increase. Maybe the baseline duration is like 5, 6, 7 seconds. And then it buffs the effect of each adaptation to now be 8% less elemental damage taken per stack. So this 4% here and this 4% here are going to add with one another for a total of 8% less per stack. Now the big question is, how many stacks of adaptation can you get? And number two, how easy will it be to maintain your stacks? For the maintaining side of things, this does work with self damage, at least if you read this line. It says when hit by elemental damage, not when hit by elemental damage from an enemy. It just says blanket when you are hit. So if you have, I think it's a charm that when you ignite an enemy, you take fire damage on yourself, that would count as a hit of elemental damage. So you would gain your fire adaptation stacks. So if we have more sources of that, or if they add different ways to self damage and then gain your adaptation, this could be pretty good. But historically, if you're only relying on taking incoming enemy damage to gain your adaptation stacks, historically, those kind of effects are not very strong in Path of Exile. There's a reason why in PoE1, everyone that runs Molten Shell, Steel Skin, Arcane Cloak, etc., have them on automation, or they use cast when damage taken or something, just to automatically have them apply to your character. You're not going to see anyone, even the top players, sit there and like manually press their Steel Skin. It's just numerically better to have it always applying to your character, and then you roll the dice whether or not it's up when you're actually taking the damage, rather than sitting there waiting for the exact time to manually press it, right? So for adaptation's sake, yeah, you don't have the manual activation side of things, but it's not actually applying to your character until you actually take the damage that you're trying to mitigate in the first place. So kind of up in the air how powerful it will be. Still a very interesting thing to think about overall. And then for the rest of the Shaman here, Wisdom of the Magi is pretty interesting. So basically your socketable items, they're called augments now, I believe, have an additional effect that will also apply to your character. It's not emplacing the inherent effect of it, it's just adding something on top. And there's one example in the reveal video, I'll put it up here. I forget which rune it is, but the additional effect that you get is flat critical strike chance, which is pretty dang good. Sacred Flow gives you 40 flat spirit for every empty charm slot. This one's like okay, I guess. Maybe you can go like a no charm build. There is a maximum of 3 charm slots, so the best that this could give you is 120 spirit, which is like pretty good, but again, you're sacrificing all of your charms to do that. Is it really worth the trade-off? To be determined. But for the second Ascendancy, and I am much more excited to try this one out, this is the Oracle. And by far, I think the most interesting node here is the Unseen Path. Walk the paths not taken. So number one, they're adding a bunch of new passive skills to the Druid area of the tree right here. I think it said they're adding 200 to this area alone, which is going to be absolutely insane. And then this node here, Paths Not Taken, adds an additional, I think it was either 100 or 150 more passive nodes to this very same area. It just reveals them on the tree as if they were always there, just for the Oracle. Very, very, very interesting. Obviously, we have to see what the nodes actually do, if they're going to be any good. But that alone seems very cool. Definitely want to try that out. And actually, that is a 4-pointer node. The 2-pointer that goes into it says non-keystone passive skills in a medium radius of an allocated keystone passive. It's a ton of words. Can be allocated without being connected to your tree. So the way to think about this is the From Nothing unique jewel around Zealot's Oath, but this is a small radius circle. This is what a medium radius circle looks like. So this big of the entire circle, everything within it as well. Around every single keystone that you allocate, you will be able to put in your points just like that and save a metric butt ton of passive points. Now, once again, we do not have the actual info for what this passive tree is going to look like. Again, about 200 new nodes here in this area alone, and then an additional 100 from the Unseen Path. Suffice to say, it's going to be very interesting to figure out how good this actually is. Past that, the Oracle actually has some very good just standalone nodes. The first one, Lesser Harm, it's a 2-pointer. It's all right. Enemy crit chance and the damage of the enemies are both unlucky, so they have to roll twice and they choose the worst result. But the node after that, Forced Outcome, a 4-pointer, makes you have inevitable critical hits. Now, the inevitable critical strike support gem simply gives you up to 200% increased critical strike chance, and then whenever you deal a crit with that skill, it's lost and it has to stack over time. So it's probably going to be the same mechanics, just with different values. So we'll have to see the exact values to see numerically if this node is actually worth it, but it's still interesting nonetheless. Then for another defensive node here, you can see the Harmony Within. You basically get 100% mind over matter, so all the hit damage you take is taken from your mana before your life, but it's only while your current mana is higher than your current life value, and then you get 15% less life and less mana. Honestly, the more I look at this node, maybe it's not going to be that good, but let's say you have like, 2000 max life, which is basically what you're going to have with your baseline life that you gain from leveling up, as well as any strength on your character. Let's say you have about 2000, so you're reducing it by 15%, which means you're at like, what, 100, 1700, I think? And then if you're stacking a bunch of intelligence, you can easily get up to, I don't know, like 3k, 4k mana with very, very, very little investment on your character. So as long as you have a decent chunk of mana regeneration rate, you essentially can have an extra 3000, 4000 damage against hits. not that bad. It also is only a 2-pointer, as you can see right here. It's not a 4-pointer. Long story short, though, there are a lot more options, it seems, here with the Oracle. It just has a lot more generic use cases than the Shaman, in my opinion. And if I had to guess, again, everything revolves around the numeric values of inevitable critical hits here, but I would probably say you're going to go lesser harm, forced outcome, Traveler's Wisdom, and then maybe Unseen Path. It really depends on what these extra passive skills actually do on the tree. And if you don't go Unseen Path, you probably are going to go Harmony Within instead. So that is my tentative plan. I'm going to be going the Wolf form, relying on cold damage and a bunch of critical strikes, and then going the Oracle as my Ascendancy class, and I'm just going to see what happens. If that sounds pretty interesting to you, you can follow the build, whatever I'm going to do, on Mobalytics, link in the description below to my profile. I'll be updating that build daily, probably multiple times a day as I play. You can also check out my stream at twitch.tv/WoolieGaming. Thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Peace!